In this unit, we learn about several movements that, to those who glance over them, seem to have little in common. Fear not, this is not the case, because when you pay close attention to those movements in detail, they have a lot of similarities. For instance, all of them share a common theme inspiration, whether it's intentional or not. I'll get into that later, though. Many artists in these movements have political motivations and aim to bring light to the rural and working class. Social realism is an example of one of the movements that aim to symbolize unity within the working classes. This movement was used in an attempt to transform society. American regionalism, to parallel social realism, mostly used themes that depicted everyday life in rural communities. American regionalism also had many politically motivated artists such as Ben Shahn. Interwar classicism is a response to the turmoil of the war by providing artworks that are more nostalgic. Those are only a couple of examples out of the many that I found within these three units. This whole unit. Considering that the theme of inspiration is notable within all the movements in this unit, I believe that Unit three's movements should be categorized as innovative. I'll start off with the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was defined as the prolific flowering of literary, visual, and musical arts within the African American community that emerged around the 1920s in Harlem neighborhood of New York City. According to the artstory.org, this movement provoked inspiration in many ways. Mary Edmonia Lewis was a direct influence into the Harlem Renaissance. According to the .org, Lewis provided an inspirational model for how African American women artists might achieve success by combining contemporary trends and African themes. Another major inspiration to this movement was Alain Leroy Locke, who wrote The New Negro, which, according to the artstory.org, which sought to inspire African American culture based on pride and self dependence. Magic realism is a form of mysterious. Uh, Magic realism is a form of mysteriousness and strange art to convey everyday life. It is meant to essentially explore how strange our existence is, thus offering a new perspective to further question it. It is inspired. It has inspired others' creativity as well as surrealism, which goal was to channel the unconscious as a means to unlock the power of imagination. Interwar classicism, as mentioned before, is a movement meant to evoke a feeling of nostalgia to reflect to before the war. Its goal was to make people reflect in times before progression so that people see its negativity. The Boas and 14th Street School were both influential schools. The Boas was considered to be one of the most influential art schools of the 20th century. It had an impact on Europe and the USA even after they were pressured to close. Its goal was to reunite fine art and functional design, creating a practical objects within the soul of artworks, according to the art story. The school was adamant about problem solving and experimentation, and became an influential sorry became an influential teaching method. Mexican muralism is the next one I'm going to talk about, and it was created through the need to invoke the feeling of pride and nationalism. This movement brought murals back to life and was also able to educate the average man in various important issues at the time, like politics and many, many important things in society at that time period. Next, I'm going to talk about outsider art, which, much like surrealism, was based on human unconsciousness. It was treated as inspirational due to the spiritual and religious connotations connected to it. It was said that you will have to be at an elevator or a higher power, or have like this awakening or call to be able to paint. There was no background; it just happened. And lastly, I will talk about American regionalism and social realism, as I mentioned before at the very beginning. Both are similar and even are under the same category known as American scene painting. American regionalism focused more on the rural areas, while social realism focused more on the suffering and the disadvantaged. Both of them were aimed to spark and show others what they see. So, now that mentioned all of them and how they relate to invoke, inspire, uh, how they're innovative, I want to know, why do you believe art is so influential throughout history? Why is it so important? Why does it work? Why has it worked in the past? Also, I want to know, do you feel as though art is less or more influential in today's or modern time? Why and why not? Thank you.